very honored to be invited to speak today as part of World Unity Week and on behalf of Parenting 2.0. I have a passion for financial literacy, and I am driven to help people around the world incorporate financial literacy into their day-to-day activities to achieve an overall better living experience because money matters. It's important to share where this passion comes from and why I do what I do. So for the next few minutes, I want to share how money has impacted my life. And I want to start with a childhood story. I grew up in a small town on the shores of the Gulf of Mexico. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and great grandmother who lived nearby. There were other loving and caring adults also in this village-like neighborhood. By some standards, we lived well, and other standards we did not. My parents didn't talk about their money struggles or dire financial issues in my presence. But I do remember once the power to our home was cut off. However, it was quickly restored when the bill was paid. But thankfully, I never had to worry about some of the adult problems like providing food, clothing, and shelter for myself. While in my teens, I remember my mom celebrating after making the final mortgage payment on our home. During my time in the village, I learned valuable life lessons that rest on a foundation of honesty, respect, sharing, giving, and hope. My parents worked really hard to provide for us, and as a result, family outings were very rare. But also, I want to share how things went from a day-to-day basis. My grandfather provided the shoe sign service to the most prominent barbershop in our town. His clients included business owners and professional men. As a youngster about the age of 5 or 6, for a birthday gift, he gave me a little red shoe shine kit. I was very excited and thrilled to receive the gift. I could hardly wait to get started shining shoes. The little shoe shine kit had a raised platform to position your shoes and a compartment below for polishes, brushes, and shining cloth. It had everything I needed to start my shoe shine business. It even had a shoulder strap attached for easy carrying. Granddaddy Otis said that I should charge my customers 10 cents for a shoe shine. My first customer was my dad, who paid me 20 cents for shining 2 pair of his shoes. When I earned my first 20 cents, I was so excited. To this day, I still own that little red shoe shine kit. It is a wonderful reminder that for one of my first money experiences. During that same period, I earned money by selling clothes hangers to the local dry cleaners. You see, the owner of the local cleaners was a childhood friend of my father. And the owner would pay me a couple of pennies for each clothes hanger that I would return to his business. As you can imagine, I was constantly scouring my parents' and grandparents' clothes closets for unused clothes hangers. I even had a few people in the neighborhood who would save their clothes hangers for me. During those years, I was learning some of the basic principles of financial literacy, how to earn money, but most importantly, how to save and spend less than I made. At that time, I didn't have a bank account, so my father taught me how to make a savings bank. He fashioned the bank out of an empty cigar box. He sealed the box and cut an opening in the top of the box large enough for coins to be inserted. I would always store a portion of my earnings in the box. When I had saved up enough money to buy something, I would withdraw the funds from the box and seal the box again. My parents worked hard at their profession. They enjoyed serving families and individuals in the community to improve the quality of life for those in need. Dad, for most of my childhood, was a sole proprietor of a small neighborhood food store. Each evening, Dad would bring home the daily receipts from his business. After dinner, we would sit at the table and count the daily receipts. Mom was an elementary educator. She was always in the background, teaching me both how to count and identify money denominations. I thank my parents for the early childhood lessons they taught, because the lessons are the foundations of who I am. I could not be in a position to help others if I did not have honesty, courage, responsibility, respect for others, love, consideration, and many other important values. By the time I was a young adult, I had become heavily influenced by social pressures, especially when it comes to money. Society tells us how we should use our money and how to feel while using it. I am sure you're aware of the American dream that retailers created for the consumers. Commercials and other types of advertisements showing couples with nice homes, two kids, two new cars, and many, many other nice things designed to make life appealing and enjoyable. In my early 20s and getting married, my wife and I fell into this trap by society and began to chase this dream. We purchased all of the material things that society and our friends said we should have. It was not long before our debt exceeded our income. We found ourselves maxed out in credit card debt, trying to raise a family with all of the associated expenses. We were trying to maintain an unrealistic lifestyle at the risk of not having any savings or money for emergencies. So we began to work more hours to generate additional income. We discovered that the more we made, the more we spent. So generating more income without a financial strategy for the additional funds coming in is not beneficial. We were just working more hours, being more tired, buying more stuff, and spending less time together as a family. So we returned to college and obtained additional degrees, hoping that higher degrees and more income would help make ends meet. This resulted in more debt and much of the same, working more hours, being more tired, buying more stuff, spending less time together as a family. But we were no different than any other typical young family during that time period and the ones today. They are all trying to build a wholesome life without any or a small amount of financial literacy knowledge. Families with low financial literacy tend to struggle regardless of where they live. They may not feel comfortable using banks or credit cards. As the family matures, the cost to raise a family increases. Kids' social life expands, and so does the associated cost. There may be school events or after school activities. Family experiences an increase in food, clothing, and transportation costs. The cost of personal items are to be considered, such as cell phones, computers, tablets, TVs, and all other associated accessories. And since the parents are the providers, they don't want to be left without their own must-have items. Parents don't want to feel like they are falling behind their peers, so they want to spend beyond their income. Sometimes as a parent, you may feel like you deserve to buy yourself something to reward yourself, regardless of if you can afford it or not. You become laser focused on making the purchase, even if there are no important financial issues that need to be addressed. These are the type of financial crises that families can avoid if they have sufficient financial literacy knowledge. When you ignore your finances, you destroy any possible positive relationship with your money. Your relationship with your money is like a relationship with a friend. You have to put something into the relationship in order to get something out. You must spend time with that person. You must spend quality time on a regular basis with your money. One day during a rare day off, I decided to go for an exercise walk. As I was returning from an enjoyable walk and nearing my home, the sight of 4 cars in my driveway was a revealing light bulb financial moment. That scene forced me to question my past money behaviors and strategy. I was forced to admit to myself that my wife and I could no longer continue down the road of high debt and no savings. We could no longer afford to ignore building a financial legacy for our children. We could no longer continue to have a poor relationship with our money. We had to redefine and refocus on what was most important to us. Even the kids had to buy into this new way of thinking. I realized that I had strayed away from all of the lessons that I had learned during my childhood about values and money. That was the reason behind our financial struggles. My wife and I agreed to return to the basic principles of financial literacy, living out of what you made, paying bills on time, contributing both to savings and emergency accounts, reducing debt, and preparing for retirement. I wish that I could tell you that it was a swift and easy change to adhere to. But with hard work, dedication, accountability to each other, and an increase in our financial literacy knowledge, our plan worked. When you find yourself in financial trouble, it does not mean that you are a bad person, because you are not your money. You are not defined by your wealth or lack of. But I know from experience that it is very hard for some to not place blame on themselves or feel badly about themselves. You may feel shame, guilt, anger, uselessness, and embarrassment. I was feeling angry because I knew better, and guilty because I did something wrong both to myself and my family. I knew that some changes had to be made, and it would be very difficult to make those changes. I also knew that I was the leader of my family, and our well-being depended on me. I believe if I didn't make the changes within, we will continue down the road of financial ruin, and my family will be faced with generational poverty. I was not sure what I would say to my wife and kids or how they would receive my thoughts, but I knew I had to say something. I want to share a story about humanity. A client came to me asking for financial coaching. The client was a single parent with a high middle class income and 3 kids approaching adulthood. I discovered that the desire was to have a financial plan that would help fund the youngest child's college expenses. I started with finding out why this desire was important. The parent was fearful if something happened, the kid would be left alone and would not be able to support themselves. There was a strong desire, driven mainly by fear, for the kids to be able to strive in society, not just survive. This show of love and caring for her family, for her kids, is an example of how a parent can use financial literacy to develop humanity within the immediate family and for future generations. Oftentimes, I am asked by parents, when do I start teaching my kids financial literacy? I tell them as soon as possible. You can teach some important life values that are strongly linked to personal finance. We all have values, and children values are basically an extension of their parents and some influential person in their life. Teach your kids humanitarian values such as honesty, responsibility, respect, love, consideration, perseverance, courage, and caring. As parents, more time than we realize it, we teach by modeling our behavior. Kids hear us when we think they are not listening. They see us when we think they are not looking. When you intentionally teach your children these fundamental values, you are setting the groundwork for future generational success. Financial literacy role in humanity is important because regardless of where you live, work, play, or engage with others, we are impacted by money or something that we can exchange for goods and services. Here's an example. The virtue of love is a humanitarian experience. There are costs associated with going on a date with your mate to celebrate an occasion or a signature strength. There are costs associated with expressing your love through gifts. Engaging in activities with friends and loved ones, there are costs. Celebrating days or occasions that are mutually important. There are costs when you assist your loved one with a self-improvement plan, or even volunteering for a cause you love. Many worldwide financial literacy surveys and studies conclude that about 1/3 of the adult population are considered financially literate. Governments in many countries are pushing to boost access to financial services. The number of people with bank accounts and access to credit products is rising rapidly and increasing across the globe. Now, this transformational shift shifts more of the decisions about personal finance away from institutions, firms, and governments toward individuals, imposing on workers the responsibility to save, invest, and spend wisely over the life cycle. For this reason, the new financial era will impose a much heavier burden on workers and their households than in the past to become financially literate, to learn how to process economic information and make informed decisions about household finances. Yet many people are often woefully unaware of basic economics and finance shortfalls that may lead them to make serious and often irreversible mistakes. When you become intentional about your money, you will accumulate wealth regardless of where you live in the world. I have read about some interesting financial literacy patterns reported by some countries. For example, in some countries, there are large racial ethnic differences in financial knowledge. Whites and Asians are consistently more likely to be financially knowledgeable compared to African Americans and Hispanics. Some countries report large geographic differences in financial literacy. For instance, financial literacy could be higher in northern and central regions than the southern region. There are also urban-rural differences. People living in urban areas tend to be more financially literate than those living in rural areas. This may be due to differential exposures to the modern financial sector in the last few decades. There are also notable differences in financial knowledge among people with different religious beliefs. Some are less likely to be financially knowledgeable. I tend to see that younger people know very little about how money works, but they acknowledge it. By contrast, older people consistently rate themselves as very knowledgeable, despite the fact that they are actually less literate than average. There is a need for increased financial literacy around the world. Most countries seem to be shifting to teaching their young the basics of financial literacy. Perhaps world leaders are realizing that people who are financially literate have the ability to make informed financial choices regarding savings, investing, borrowing, and their holistic health. It is very beneficial that the women of the world in our families have a meaningful role in the household finances. It has been found that women score less on financial literacy surveys than men. But when both parents are financially literate, the overall family quality of life improves. Now, the connection between financial literacy and humanity is fundamentally important because when financial knowledge increases, people learn how to change for the better. They develop a positive vision of themselves or an inspiring dream or goal that they have long desired. People draw energy and motivation from their visions and dreams, and that same energy sustains their effort to change, even though even through difficult financial times. When people gain financial knowledge, they will forever alter the way they think about and practice personal finance. Financial literacy can play a role in not only how you feel about yourself, but whether or not you successfully achieve your goals in life. Virtually all people can identify money goals they want to accomplish, things they would like to change, and things they would like to achieve. However, most people also realize that putting these plans into action is not quite so simple. Money matters around the world because financial literacy is critical to self-efficacy. You must, you must believe in yourself and your ability to manage your money. Without an outstanding understanding of basic financial concepts, people are not well equipped to make decisions related to financial management and will continue to struggle with money issues. So I want to bring you back to my early marriage story. Once my wife and I got on the right financial track, I noticed a deep passion for financial literacy within me. I wanted to share what I had learned through the years. I felt a strong internal love for personal finance. Most of my conversations and thoughts would eventually land on the topic of money and how to manage it, the struggles I had experienced, and the lessons that I had learned. Even though I was talking about personal finance, I felt that the conversations were not the most effective way to help people. I wanted to do more. So I decided to take classes to increase my knowledge and skills. The more I learned, the more I saw a need to help others. As I went about it, I realized that there were so many people who are being left behind or forgotten simply because they lack financial knowledge. Some people have lost hope and are overwhelmed with life issues. I want those people to know that there are people who will help them. There are humanitarians who have dedicated their lives to help make the world a better place through financial literacy. I pray for the day when everyone has reasonable access to financial education. Subsequently, this makes a better world, and that's why money matters. Have a blessed time at World Unity Week.